Hi, this is Mr. Bo from MrBoEnglish.com. We've been working on the quadratics unit in Khan Academy, and here we're doing the square roots, solving by square roots lesson. And the last video was quadratics by taking square roots intro, and this video we're going to be doing quadratics by taking square roots. So it's going to be a little bit more complicated. Last one was really quite simple. This time we're going to get a little bit more difficult. So let's step right in. All right. So our first problem says solve for x. Write the smaller solution first and the larger solution second. So this is not function notation. This is just a one variable equation, and we have x minus 7 squared. And you'll remember last video we didn't have anything that looked like this. Everything was just x squared. Okay. So we're following our inverse order of operations to solve. So first thing we do is subtract or add. I'm going to add 25 to both sides. Oops. So that's step one. Add 25 to both sides. I'm going to start writing these because you'll see later in later videos we'll really need this. Okay, so I'll start getting you guys used to this. So now I have x minus 7 squared is equal to 25. So my next step on the inverse order of operations is divide and multiply. But I don't have any coefficient here, so I can't really do that. So skipping to exponent, here I have an exponent. So inverse of squared is square root. This is just like what we did last time, except that there's something inside the parentheses, and last one there wasn't something inside the parentheses. So we're left with x minus 7 is equal to 5, or x minus 7 is equal to negative 5. And then we've broken our parentheses, so we get to start over at the front after we've broken our parentheses and do add 7 to both sides. Oh, I forgot to write my step 2 out, which was take the square root of both sides. And you'll see all the time I have both sides here. Both sides in Thai means tang song kang. Okay. So now my step 3, x is equal to 12, or x is equal to 2. And my step 3, we're going to add 7 to both sides. All my kids know, I always say one side, and they say, no, two sides. Ah. Okay, so our answers are x equals 2 and x equals 12. We're going to type in the smaller number 2 first and the larger number 12 second. Starting to figure out how to do this this tablet thing. My first few videos were kind of rough, but now it's okay. So let's read the problem. Solve for z. Write the smaller solution first and the larger solution second. Round to 2 decimal places. This means it's not going to be a pretty number. Okay, so we've got x plus 15 squared minus 10 equals 0. So my inverse order of operations. First step, step 1, add and subtract. So I'm going to add or subtract. Step 1, and step 1 is add 10 to both sides. Okay, so let's see. Now I've got x plus 15 squared is equal to 10. Let's see, divide and multiply. I don't really have a coefficient up here, so nothing to do. And then step 2 is going to be take the square root. And square root, I have square root of 10. And positive or negative square root. So we have to divide this up into two equations now. I have x plus 15 is equal to square root of 10, or x plus 15 is equal to negative square root of 10. So the our step 2 is take the square root of both sides. Okay, so then we've broken up our parentheses, so we're going to go back and we're going to start over inside the parentheses now. And subtract 15 from both sides. So that's my step 3. Step 3 is subtract 15 from both sides. You'll see why I'm doing this here next video. Kind of get you ready for that. So x is equal to square root of 10 minus 15, or x is equal to negative square root of 10 minus 15. So I played around with con for a while because I really don't like to do estimation. But yeah, you can't put square roots inside con here. So we're going to have to take our calculator and square root. You'll see square root 10. Make sure we close the parentheses there. Minus 15. And it wants that number to 2 decimal places. So negative 11.8. And then the next number is 37, which we're going to round up to 4. Okay? And the other choice is negative, negative square root of 10, and close those parentheses, minus 15. And then we've got negative 18.162, and we're going to round that to 1/6. Okay. There we go. There's my close. Okay, so the smaller number here is negative 18.16. And the larger number is negative 0.84. Check those. Check. Okay. All right, we're on number 3. Find the zeros of this function. So our function in function notation is f of x is equal to x plus 2 squared minus 64, and we want to know the zeros, so we want to know when the function is 0. And then my inverse order of operations. First, I'm going to add 64 to both sides. So my first step is add 64 to what? Right, both sides. One side? No, two sides. Okay. So now I have 64 is equal to x plus 2 squared. I'm going to turn that around here. X plus 2 squared equals 64. Okay, so now going through multiply and divide, but I don't have any coefficient here, so I don't need to do that. My next one is exponents, so I want to take square root of both sides, so my step number 2 is take the square root of both sides, and I end up with x plus 2 is equal positive square root is 8, or x plus 2 the negative square root is negative 8. Negative 8 squared is 64. 8 squared is 64. So both these are true. We need to remember when we do the inverse of a square, we're going to get a positive and negative result. Okay? And then number 3, because we broke this parenthesis up here, we're going back to the beginning. Subtract. Okay, and my step I'm going to call subtract 2 from both sides. Alright, subtract 2 from both sides, so that means x is equal to 6, or x is equal to negative 10. And it wants the smaller number first. Which one is smaller? The negative number is smaller. Alright, and our last one here. Find the zeros of the function. Write the smaller solution first and the larger solution second. So this is a function again. F of x is equal to x minus 2 squared minus 9. And we want to find the zeros. So that means we'll set the function equal to 0. Okay, and what do we do next? Subtract and add. On one side, no, on two sides. So our first step is add 9 to both sides. And add 9 to both sides. So 9 is equal to x minus 2 squared. And now we'll look for divide and multiply. We don't really have any coefficient up here. I'm going to rewrite this one. Don't really have any coefficient up here. So we're going to go over to the exponent. Here I have a squared. Inverse of squared is square root, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides, positive and negative. So my second step is take the square root of both sides. And I'm going to end up with x minus 2 is equal to 3, or x minus 2 is equal to negative 3. Why? Because negative 3 squared is 9. 3 squared is 9. X minus 2 squared is x minus 2 squared. Okay, and then my last step, step number 3, is going to be add 2 to both sides. Whoops. Okay. So now I have x equals 5, or x equals negative 1, and we'll call this add 2 to both sides. Okay, so I have 5 and negative 1, and what's the smaller number? The negative is the smaller number. And there we go. Alright, so that's how you do the practice problems for quadratics by taking square roots. If you have any other questions, please get a hold of us online. and thank you for your time. Mr. Bo English รับสอนนักเรียนตั้งแต่ป .3 ขึ้นไปทางอินเทอร์เน็ตในสไตล์ EP ครับผู้สนใจช่วยติดต่อครูแจงหรือไปเว็บไซต์ที่ www.mrboenglish.com